Many years ago, before everything scattered like dry pepper in the wind, Amalia Chimbanda was known in her town of Benguela as the quiet tailor with the softest eyes and the neatest stitches. She had a way of greeting people that made them smile even if they were angry. And when customers came to her small wooden shop and complained that their clothes were too tight or too loose, she would smile and say, "Don't worry, I'll fix it." Her mother, Mama Selina, always told her, "My daughter, your calmness is your crown. Don't lose it because of anybody's noise." And truly, Amalia carried that crown like a queen, making people feel safe around her. And then, one hot afternoon when the sun refused to mind its business, a man named Lazaro Matthews stopped by her shop. He came to fix a torn pocket on his shirt, but what torn next was his heart. He stood by the doorway staring as if he just saw a miracle. And when Amalia said, "Good afternoon, sir," his voice stammered, "Afternoon, beautiful Peace." From that day, he started calling her Peace Woman, and he came back the next day and the next, pretending to bring clothes that didn't need any fixing. Lazaro was anything Amalia was not. He was loud, confident, always laughing too much, and always shaking people's hands like the president of a small country. He was a small businessman who sold car parts but behaved as if he owned Mercedes-Benz itself. He loved talking, even when nobody was listening. But somehow, he found Amalia's silence interesting. He used to sit in her shop and tell stories about his childhood, his dreams, his money problems, and even his ex, who used to shout like a police siren. Amalia would just nod, smile, and say, "It is well," which made him laugh and say, "Hey, you are very different. You are peace in human form." Soon, people in the streets began to gossip that the noisy man and the quiet tailor were becoming something. The neighbors teased her, saying, "Amalia, that man that talks like radio, he's always around you. Hope you are not planning to marry noise, oh." But Amalia would just laugh shyly and continue sewing. Even her mother noticed how she now hummed love songs while sewing, and how she smiled at her phone as if she just won a lottery. Mama Selina only said, "If he loves you for your peace, my daughter, may he also protect that peace." When Lazaro finally proposed, it was not in a restaurant or under any fancy lights. He just came one Saturday morning with a small ring, knelt beside her sewing machine and said, "Marry me, Peace Woman, because I have had too much war in my life." Everyone clapped. The market women shouted, "Hallelujah!" And Amalia's heart danced like it had never danced before. The wedding was a simple but loud event. The choir sang as if they were competing for Grammy Awards. Lazaro danced like his shoes were on fire, and Amalia smiled quietly through everything. Even during the reception, he told the crowd, "My wife doesn't talk too much, but her silence speaks louder than noise." Everyone laughed and Amalia blushed, not knowing that the same sentence would one day sound like an insult. Their marriage started peacefully. She cooked, cleaned, prayed, and smiled while he worked, talked, laughed, and brought home gifts. He would come home tired, drop his phone and say, "My Peace Woman, your face alone is my therapy." Then they would eat rice and grilled fish on the balcony and talk about how they would build a big house one day. But as months rolled by, something strange began to happen. Lazaro started acting as if her silence was a problem. When she didn't argue during small misunderstandings with him, he complained, Amalia, are you even human? Say something now." When she quietly served him food, he said, "You are too calm. Can't you spice life small?" One day, when she laughed too gently, he even told her in disgust, "You laugh as if you are afraid of yourself." It was confusing because she was doing the same things he used to love. If she got angry, he would call her dramatic. If she stayed calm, he called her boring. She didn't even know which version of herself to present anymore. She even tried cracking a joke once, but it was so bad that he stared at her and said, "Please, leave comedy for others." When Mama Selina visited, she noticed the tension. She told her daughter, "My child, peace is good though, but even peace needs laughter to survive." Amalia only nodded, pretending everything was fine, but her heart was slowly turning into a tight knot. Then, one evening, while they were eating, Lazarus said something that pierced deeper than a tailor's needle. He said, "You know, sometimes I feel like I am married to a pillow. Soft, quiet, and always there, but lifeless." Amalia looked up in shock. Her spoon froze halfway to her mouth. He laughed, thinking it was funny, but that night, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning round and round, and she kept telling herself, maybe peace is not enough for some men. Unfortunately, Lazarus continued to change slowly, like rain that pretends it will soon stop, but keeps falling until everywhere floods. At first, Amalia thought he was just stressed and needed more spice, but soon, what she feared the most started to happen. He would come home late with a feminine smell, laughing on the phone with somebody whose name he refused to mention. When she asked, "Who was that?" he replied, "Just business, peace woman. Don't start acting like a jealous wife." But the thing about silence is that it can start to feel like punishment when the person you are keeping peace for keeps testing your patience. Lazaro, who once said her calmness was healing, started calling it annoying. He would shout, "Amalia, what do you want? You never talk. You just sit there like a wall. Do you even have blood in your body?" Sometimes he would purposely provoke her just to see if she would react. He would scatter the bed, leave his shoes in the kitchen, and throw his clothes on the floor. When she quietly picked them up, he would shake his head and say, "You see, no single spark. A normal woman would have shouted by now." Even the neighbors started noticing the change. One of them, Auntie Lucia, called her aside one morning and said, "My daughter, see, when men say they want peace, sometimes they mean they want control. Don't let him turn you into furniture in your own house." Amalia smiled sadly and said, "He just needs time, thank you." But unfortunately, time only made things worse. One day, his younger sister Tanya came to visit for a few days. That lady was a walking pepper soup. She was hot, noisy, and always boiling. She carried gossip like handbags and criticized everything: the curtains, the food, even the way Amalia breathed. She told Amalia, "Sister-in-law, you are too gentle. How will this house ever be lively? Even the radio is quiet because of you." Amalia tried to ignore her. She cooked, cleaned, and smiled as usual. But Tanya wasn't satisfied. She started whispering into her brother's ear at night, not minding that Amalia could hear her, saying, "Brother, this your wife is like a ghost. Are you sure you didn't marry her out of pity?" Unfortunately, Lazarus started believing her, and he began spending more time outside, claiming meetings, business trips, and even fake boys' nights out. He would come home past midnight, reeking of feminine perfume. And when Amalia asked if he would eat, he would scoff, "Don't worry, the woman at the office takes better care of me." That sentence entered her heart like a needle dipped in fire. But she didn't cry. She just said, "Okay," and went to bed. However, her silence that night was not peaceful. It was heavy like thunder hiding behind the clouds. Then, the dinner disaster happened. It was a Sunday evening and Amalia cooked his favorite meal, funge with chicken stew. She decorated the table, wore her best outfits, and even played soft music to make him happy. Well, when Lazarus came in, he didn't greet her. He sat down, looked at the food and said, "Chicken again? You don't have creativity, Amalia. You are even boring in the kitchen." Amalia froze, but before she could say anything, Tanya laughed from the couch and added, "It is true, sister-in-law. Even your stew smells quiet and boring." That was the first time that something snapped inside Amalia. She looked at both of them sharply like a knife and said, "Tanya, if this house is too quiet for you, the road outside still works. And Lazaro, if chicken is too peaceful, next time I'll serve you crocodile." The whole room went silent. Lazaro blinked in confusion. Tanya's jaw dropped. Amalia calmly packed her plates, walked to the bedroom and locked the door. The next morning, she woke up early, got dressed and went to church alone. The choir sang about God's love, but her heart was boiling with pepper. When she returned, Lazarus was sitting in the living room scrolling through his phone. Without even looking up, he said, "You are changing, Amalia. I don't like this new tone." Amalia smiled bitterly. "Then maybe you should talk to the old Amalia. She died from too much peace." That night, she overheard him on the phone again. His voice was low and soft. "You are different, Nadia. You are exciting. You are not like my wife who just stares at walls." Amalia stood there in the dark hallway, clutching her chest, which felt tight. She whispered to herself, "So, this is the reward for peace." From then on, Lazaro got worse. He became totally distant. He laughed on the phone, left lipstick stains on his shirt unapologetically, and accused her of being insecure. Once, she tried to hug him from behind, but he shrugged her off and said, "Don't start acting needy." Mama Selina came visiting again and immediately noticed the cold air. "What is happening in this house, my daughter?" Amalia smiled and lied. "It's just the weather. Nothing is wrong." However, the truth was that her heart was already packing its bags. She wasn't sure when, but she knew something inside her had broken, and it was not going to stay broken forever. That night, as she lay awake listening to the sound of Lazarus' snores, she said a short prayer, "Lord, give me wisdom or give me wings." And that was the night peace started preparing to fight back. I think when people say the quiet ones are the most dangerous, they had probably met someone like Amalia Chimbanda and ran away to live to tell the story properly. Because the Amalia that woke up after that night was not the same one that used to whisper, "It is well," when her husband insulted her. She was still calm, but it was the kind of calmness that comes before a hurricane. For weeks, her silence became her greatest disguise. Lazarus thought she was still weak, but she was just planning her comeback quietly, like a lion waiting for the right time to roar. She started leaving the house early, telling him she had new sewing contracts and returning home late with small shopping bags and a mysterious smile. One day, he asked her, "Where have you been going to every day?" And she said, "I am going to where peace is appreciated." He didn't understand, but soon he would. One morning, she went to visit her best friend Rosa Baptista, a woman who had the mouth of 10 radios and the confidence of a lawyer who never loses cases. When Rosa opened the door and saw Amalia standing there with swollen eyes and trembling lips, she shouted, "Ah, I knew it. You've been swallowing tears again. Come inside before I march to that man's shop myself." Amalia sat down and finally talked. She poured out everything, the insults, the late nights, the mysterious Nadia, and the way Tanya treated her like a house help. Rosa's mouth hung open. "You mean you've been living like this and you didn't even slap small sense into that man? My sister, you are too calm. Even Jesus flogged people in the temple. Who are you not to shout?" They both burst into laughter, but that laughter was medicine. For the first time in a long time, Amalia felt her chest open up. Rosa encouraged her to join a women's tailoring group in Luanda. It was a small collective of fashion designers who met weekly to share ideas, take pictures, and showcase their designs. Amalia hesitated at first, saying, "I don't know anyone there." Rosa replied, "Good, you'll meet the woman you used to be." That week, Amalia packed her sewing machine and moved temporarily to Luanda for business expansion. Lazaro didn't even ask too many questions. He was too busy enjoying his so-called freedom. He told Tanya, let her go. Maybe she will learn how to be interesting in the city. But oh, Luanda taught her more than how to be interesting. It taught her how to glow. Amalia started designing bold and colorful dresses. Not the shy types that were afraid, but the loud ones that announced confidence. She began smiling differently and walking with her back straight. The other designers admired her work, and one of them helped her open an Instagram page for her fashion line. She named it Casa da Paz by Amalia. Within weeks, her design started trending. People loved her story and her calm but classy aura. She even got invited to a small fashion event where she modeled her own outfits. Meanwhile, back in Benguela, Lazaro was still busy misbehaving. He was seeing Nadia, the same woman who once sold phones in the market but now called herself business consultant. Nadia was full of drama and excitement, exactly what he thought he wanted. She laughed loudly, wore long wigs, and posted motivational quotes like, if he can't handle your fire, let him burn elsewhere. Well, he didn't know that elsewhere was about to be him. Back in Luanda, Amalia started getting attention from unexpected places. One of her clients, who was a journalist, invited her for a TV interview about peaceful women who rebuild after heartbreak. The interview went viral. Everyone praised her voice, her confidence, and her grace. The video caption read, silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is preparation. When Rosa sent Lazaro the clip, he nearly dropped his phone. He was sitting in his car with Nadia when he saw his wife's face on media. She looked radiant, dressed in a bright orange gown with soft makeup and a calm smile. The presenter asked, so, Mrs. Amalia, what inspired your transformation? And she replied, pain has a way of turning peace into power. Nadia hissed, this your wife likes forming saints. But Lazaro didn't hear her. He was too busy staring at the screen like someone who just remembered he left a diamond in the trash. The next day, gossip started flying in Benguela. Tanya's friends began tagging her in the video saying, your sister-in-law is trending, oh, she's glowing. See how beautiful she looks. Tanya felt heat rise to her face and she mumbled, she's just lucky. TV will soon forget her. But deep down, she was jealous. 2 days later, another shock came. Someone sent Lazaro a video clip. It was of Nadia at a hotel dancing closely with another man. The caption read, soft life baby with her real king. And there, on her wrist, was the same gold bracelet he bought for her last week. He threw his phone on the couch and screamed, so I left my peaceful wife for this circus? That evening, he called Amalia for the first time in months. She picked up and her voice was as calm as ever. Hello, Lazaro. He stammered, Amalia, I just saw your interview. You look different. Amalia smiled. That's because I remembered who I was before peace became punishment. Lazaro sighed. Can we talk, please? I think I made mistakes. Amalia laughed. You didn't make mistakes, Lazaro. You made choices, and now the results are teaching you free lessons. Before he could reply, she added, don't worry, I am not angry. You gave me war, and I decided to build an empire out of the ashes. With that, she ended the call. That night, she and Rosa drank juice on her balcony, watching the Luanda skyline. Rosa asked, so what's next, peace woman? Amalia smiled. Next? I'll just keep sewing peace into dresses and letting them wear my story. See, if life were a market, Kama would be that market woman who never forgets to collect her balance. Because after months of pretending he didn't care, Lazarus Matthews' arrogance began to crack piece by piece like an overused plastic bowl. As if Nadia's betrayal was not enough, everything around him started going wrong at once. His business, which once moved like a fast train, suddenly began to slow down. Clients stopped calling. One man accused him of taking money for spare parts that never arrived. Another customer returned a shipment claiming it was fake. Even his trusted assistant quit without notice, saying he found a better opportunity. Well, the truth was, nobody wanted to work for a man whose name was now mixed with scandal and gossip, because somewhere between Luanda and Benguela, the streets had started talking. They said, that is the man who cheated on his quiet wife, the one on TV. His reputation began to smell like rotten fish. Even people who once admired him started crossing the road when they saw him. And as if embarrassment was not enough, Nadia, the firecracker, who once called him my lion, suddenly became his biggest headache. She would call him 10 times a day demanding things, wigs, phones, strips, and if he didn't answer, she would go on to post cryptic messages online. Some men are only lions in their dreams. When peace leaves your house, war will move in and refuse to pay rent. Well, everyone knew who she was talking about. One day, Lazarus finally snapped. Nadia, I am tired. I know I wanted a woman with fire, but this fire is burning me too much. Nadia laughed, flipping her wig. Then go back to your cold wife. Maybe she will sew you a fire extinguisher. That night, he drove home in anger, shouting at himself in the car. He didn't even notice that his petrol was almost finished until the car coughed and stopped by the roadside. As he stood there sweating, mosquitoes held a conference on his legs. He muttered, God, what did I do to deserve this? Meanwhile, in Luanda, Amalia was living her best life. Her brand, Casa da Paz, had grown into something bigger than she imagined. Her dresses were now being worn by local celebrities, and she had just gotten an invitation to showcase her designs at an upcoming fashion fair. Her picture was everywhere, on billboards, magazines, and online adverts. Of course, Rosa was her biggest cheerleader. One afternoon, as they arranged clothes in the shop, Rosa said, my sister, see what peace can do when you stop wasting it on people who don't deserve it. Amalia laughed. It's funny, Rosa. I didn't even try to prove anything to him. I just started leaving. And then, one day, Lazarus village people decided to embarrass him publicly. A TV station invited Amalia again for a live discussion on self-worth and women's peace. She accepted and didn't even know that Lazarus would be watching from a crowded beer parlor. As soon as her face appeared on the screen, the men around him started murmuring, "Isn't that your wife, bro?" one of them said. Another man laughed. "She don't blow. My wife follows her page online." Lazarus forced a smile, pretending he wasn't dying inside. On screen, Amalia sat elegantly like royalty. The host asked, "Mrs. Amalia, what advice do you have for women going through silent battles?" Amalia smiled and said, "Peace is not about keeping quiet while dying inside. Peace is about knowing when to walk away before silence becomes your prison." The beer parlor went quiet. Even the men drinking beer nodded slowly. One of them whispered, "Wisdom they talk." Lazarus stood up, dropped money on the counter, and left before they started laughing at him. At home, he paced around in confusion. Everything reminded him of Amalia, the smell of her old fabric softener, the low sound of her laughter that still echoed in his head, the way she used to hum gospel songs when washing plates. He missed all of it, but pride was still sitting on his chest like a stubborn goat. Tanya, on the other hand, was having her own share of karma. Her boyfriend found out that she was the one who caused her sister-in-law's marital issues and ended their relationship with a single text, "I don't date troublemakers." People in her church also stopped greeting her, and her name became a proverb. Don't be like Tanya, the sister-in-law who mocked peace. One evening, she called her brother crying, "Lazarus, people are laughing at me. Everyone says I destroyed your marriage." Lazarus snapped, "Did I not warn you to stop talking then? See now, you and your loud mouth helped chase away the only woman who ever brought sense into this family." Tanya sniffed, "So it's my fault?" Lazarus coughed, "If your mouth were a car, it would need new brakes." A week later, Lazarus received a court summons. Amalia had officially filed for legal separation. She didn't come in person. Her lawyer did. The letter was short but painful. "Mr. Matthews, this is to inform you that Mrs. Amalia Chimbanda seeks separation based on emotional neglect and infidelity. Kindly prepare for property mediation." Lazarus stared at the paper as if it was written in Greek. His hands trembled. He picked up his phone and called her. She answered after the third ring. "Amalia, please, let's talk. Don't do this." Amalia replied calmly, "Lazarus, I already talked. You just never listened." Lazarus begged, "I can change. I'll do anything. I miss you." But Amalia's tone remained firm. "You miss peace, not me. And peace doesn't return to a house that burnt it." When she ended the call, Lazarus broke down completely. For the first time in his adult life, he cried like a child because he finally realized what he threw away. Well, that was not the end for him, because life has a funny way of balancing things properly. One moment you are the man everyone greets, "Boss Lazarus, good morning, no." And the next moment you are standing in front of your landlord explaining why the rent is late. That was exactly where Lazarus Matthews found himself a few months after Amalia left. Everything he touched seemed to crumble like old bread. His business collapsed completely. His landlord threw his things outside one morning saying, "Boss, I respected you before, but please, respect cannot pay rent." His car broke down on the same day, and the mechanic said the repairs would cost half of what he no longer had. He called Nadia out of desperation, but her number had been switched off permanently, probably by another man who could afford to pay her bills. Tanya, his sister, who once laughed at Amalia's calmness, was nowhere to be found. She had packed her things and gone back to Huambo, leaving him to face his life alone. And that was when Lazarus finally began to understand what people meant when they said, "Peace doesn't make noise, but its absence screams." He missed Amalia's stew, and without her, the house felt like a ghost town now. Everything echoed, even his own thoughts. He could barely sleep. The same silence he once mocked now mocked him back louder than thunder. One evening, as he sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through his phone, trying to find something to distract him, he saw a video on Facebook. It was Amalia's latest interview from a local fashion blogger who had visited her new studio. The video opened with her smiling while ironing a dress, looking peaceful, calm, and radiant in a way that made him want to cry. The blogger asked, "So, how did you start all this?" Amalia smiled softly and said, "It started with pain, but, pain can teach you who you really are. I stopped trying to please people who didn't value my quietness. Now, I am using that same energy to rebuild my life." The comment section was filled with praises. "This woman's grace is something else. May we never lose our peace to the wrong people. She's a true Angolan queen." Lazarus didn't notice when his eyes began to blur, and he shamefully admitted that he didn't deserve her kind of woman. He hesitated for days, but then one Saturday morning, he finally took a bus to Luanda. He didn't have a car anymore, and even his best shirt had started fading, but he didn't care. He carried a small bag of apology gifts, a box of her favorite biscuits, and a fabric he bought from the market. When he arrived at her studio, his legs felt weak. The place was bright and organized, with assistants moving around. Amalia was there, sitting behind her desk. When she saw him, she didn't flinch. She just blinked slowly, then smiled. Good afternoon, Lazaro. He swallowed hard. Amalia, you look different. You look happy. Amalia nodded. That is what peace looks like when it is not competing with chaos. Lazarus shifted awkwardly, holding the biscuit box like a child caught stealing. I came to say sorry, he murmured, for everything. I was stupid. I didn't realize you were the one holding my life together. Amalia sighed. Lazaro, I forgive you. I forgave you long before now. Lazaro looked down ashamed. I don't know if... Amalia interrupted him. You thought peace would always wait for you, but see, even peace gets tired of waiting. There was a long silence between them. Then he looked around the studio and said, You built all this without me. Amalia smiled. No, Lazarus, I built it after you. Pain became my raw material. Lazarus wanted to ask for another chance, but deep down, he knew it was too late. She wasn't his anymore. Before leaving, he handed her the biscuit box and the fabric. I know it's not much. She accepted them. It's okay. You've already given me the biggest gifts. Lazarus frowned. What is that? Amalia looked him straight in the eyes and said, Freedom. Lazarus nodded slowly and left without another word. That evening, he walked along the Luanda streets, watching couples laughing and holding hands. For the first time, he realized how badly he had treated what other men would have prayed for. Meanwhile, back in her studio, Amalia packed up her things, ready to close for the day. Rosa entered in a rush, as if she had been running. Guess who I saw outside looking like a lost goat, she said, grinning. Amalia smiled without looking up. Let me guess, Lazaro. Rosa's eyes widened. You saw him? Yes, Amalia said. He came here to apologize. And? Amalia folded a piece of cloth and said, I wished him peace too. Rosa laughed. So that is it? That is it, Amalia replied. Some wars don't need revenge, just distance. That night, as she lay in bed, the wind outside blew gently through her curtains. She thought about everything she had survived and smiled to herself. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just thankful that she had found herself before she was completely lost. And somewhere in his small room, Lazarus sat on a small bed, staring at an old wedding photo. He picked up his phone, opened Amelia's business page and typed a message. I'm proud of you, Amalia. May your peace never run out. Amalia saw the message hours later and typed back one short reply. Amen. And that was how it ended, with a peaceful understanding between them. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What lessons did you learn from the story? Share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye.